October is here. That means Halloween is near. It also means the Fall Classic is right around the corner. The best time to watch baseball is now. Get ready for all the big moments, crazy comebacks, and Cinderella stories. I'm Matt Becker, joined alongside by Owen, Cameros, and Jeremy Rose, and we are going to break down the upcoming wildcard round for the MLB postseason. The Texas Rangers are going to make their first playoff appearance since 2016, and it will be against the Tampa Bay Rays. Owen, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so the Rangers lost on the final day to the Seattle Mariners, and unfortunately that made it so that the Astros, again, won the AL West. Now the Rangers have to travel to play the Tampa Bay Rays, and I think that the Rays will take this series pretty easily. It's a best of three series in Tampa Bay, all three games. And they, even with losing Wander Franco, they have so much talent. You know, they've really turned it on this past month or so. They've been really good. Their hitting is incredible. They got guys that, top down that can hit the ball really well. And the Texas Rangers, they're just a lot of question marks about that team. They were great for the first, like 4 or 5 months of the season. They were like first place in the AL West for I think 145 consecutive days. And then they've just kind of been shaky as of late. They had a decent end of the season. They got back into playoff contention. But the thing with the Rangers, there's just a lot of question marks, and they haven't been great away. They're I think 40-41 away from Texas. Whereas the Rays are, I think, one of the best teams in the league playing at home. I think they're like 53-28. So I just think that the Rays will just have too much talent, and playing in front of that home crowd, they will be able to take this 3-game series.
It's funny because they say that the Tropicana field is not the craziest environment, but they just have such a good record at home. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there.
Maybe humidity.
Yeah. Now let's get into the reigning National League champions playing against the Miami Marlins. Jeremy, do you think the Phillies will be able to use their playoff experience to beat Miami?
The Philadelphia Phillies come in obviously with all the experience in the world, but do not count out the Miami Marlins. Obviously, these two teams stack up very evenly when it comes to their starting pitching across the board, and the Marlins do have the slight edge when it comes to that bullpen power, so they will be able to close out the back ends of games if they do have that opportunity. But when it comes to the Phillies, the name of the game for them is their offense, led by, of course, Bryce Harper. You've got Bryson Stott, Kyle Schwarber, enough guys all throughout the entire lineup that I think it is impossible to count out the Phillies in this 3-game set. I see them taking it in 3 games, and they will eliminate the Miami Marlins and head their way to Atlanta.
Well, Philly is a very streaky team, and that's what they did last year. They got hot, and if they can get hot, they might even win a World Series this year.
Guys, the limit.
Now, let's move over to the Twin Cities. The Twins will take on the Toronto Blue Jays in Minnesota. Owen, who do you think will win that matchup?
This is a really interesting matchup for a couple of reasons. First off, the Twins, they won the very, very weak AL Central. I think they were 87-win team, wouldn't have made the playoffs unless they were in the AL Central. And they take on the Blue Jays at home. And the Blue Jays, really interesting team this year. For the past 4 or 5 years, the Blue Jays have been incredibly good at hitting the ball. They've been a team with a lot of pop, a lot of home runs. This year, about average in terms of their hitting statistics. They haven't been great. But what's really been great is their pitching, which is a complete opposite. Their pitching has been a weak point these past few years. I think the big thing that happened in the offseason that changed all this around, they went out and they got a star reliever, Eric Swanson, who's been great this year, sub-3 ERA. They traded away Teoscar Hernandez with the Mariners, and their starting pitching has just, somehow been incredible. I don't know why that was such a change this year. Guys have come into their own. So what's really going to be interesting is whether the Twins whether their difference makers can really make a difference, if that makes sense. The Twins, they have home field advantage. They're playing in their own ballpark, but the Blue Jays have, on paper, they have the more talent. They are, a very good roster. I really like their starting pitching. I would go to the Blue Jays just because I haven't seen a ton out of the Twins, just in terms of they've played in a pretty weak division. They haven't looked spectacular against non-divisional opponents. They've had a better September than recently. I think they're doing pretty well in terms of offensive statistics. And the Blue Jays have been all right as of late, haven't been incredible. But I just think with the Blue Jays, they find a way to win away from home. And I just think that they'll go in with the knowledge that they are the better ball club and that they should come out of this series. I think they'll win in 3 games.
Well, the Twins don't have the best type of history in playoff games. I think over the last 5 years, they've lost nearly every series.
Yeah,
a lot to the Yankees and just all these other teams. And They just don't do too well in October. And the final wildcard matchup for us to discuss is the Brewers against the Arizona Diamondbacks. They haven't made the playoffs since 2017. Jeremy, what do you think will happen in this series?
You know, Arizona comes into this series with a completely different team than the last time they made the playoffs, and I think that this new fresh start team is really going to make a big difference. Obviously, when it comes to the Brewers, the only thing you think about is their pitching. They've got Corbin Burnes, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff is finally back after missing the majority of the season. He has looked excellent since he's been back. And their defense, they give up the least amount of runs in the league. Their bullpen is absolutely phenomenal. But I don't think that's going to scare away the Diamondbacks. You know, the Diamondbacks have the young star power led by guys like Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Gabriel Moreno, and with the 1-2 pitching punch of Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, I don't see them being eliminated in the series. I mean, they come in with a phenomenal offense that I don't think is going to get scared away by the playoff experience and the pitching power that the Brewers have. I've got the Diamondbacks taking this one in 3.
This is a very interesting series to watch. It's not something that I thought was going to happen at the start of the year, so I'm very intrigued to watch that. Now, let's get into our predictions for the American League champion, the National League champion, and the World Series champion. Jeremy, let's start with you.
I mean, coming out of the AL, I see the Tampa Bay Rays. Owen, you gave them a great resume, and I don't even need to build off of that. You made their points for them. The Tampa Bay Rays are going to come in here. They made the World Series in 2020 against the Dodgers, and they have played just great baseball throughout the year. I see them, you know, taking on the Orioles once it comes down to it. The Orioles have played, of course, very well this year, but Tampa Bay has the experience. They have the guys, and I think that's my AL pick. And out of the NL, no surprise, it's the Atlanta Braves. Their offense is as deep as it gets. Guys 1 through 9, all 4 or 5 guys on their bench can hit. They can produce. They can play defense, and I don't see anybody slowing down their offense. Most teams, when it comes down to the playoffs, you know, they've got the back-end bullpen to close it out. But the Braves, if they're ever down in a game when it comes to the late innings, they just score more runs. And if they're ahead by 1 or 2 runs, they score more runs. And there's no team in baseball that can replicate that, no team in baseball that can take them down. I've got the Braves winning this one in 6 in Truist Park. This is a very, very electric crowd to play in, especially in those late game scenarios. They turn out the lights when the opposing pitchers change, and there's absolutely no atmosphere like that. The Braves are my pick here.
And going off of what you said, I'm actually going to go with a rematch of the 2020 World Series. I have the LA Dodgers facing the Tampa Bay Rays. And I think the thing with this is my pick is the LA Dodgers have had a really quiet 100-win season, and they have a ton of talent. Clayton Kershaw looks like vintage Clayton Kershaw. He has under a 2.5 ERA, which is incredible for a 35-year-old. And then they have so much talent. I mean, Freddie Freeman's hit like 307 or, over 300 with like a 900 OBP. Mookie Betts has had an incredible season. They're just a really well-balanced team with stars on offense, stars in the starting rotation, and stars in the bullpen. So I think for them, they also have a pretty easy route to at least the NLCS. They'll face the Braves, but I expect them to have more rest than the Braves do because I think the Braves have a harder NLDS. And then for the Rays, I know they're a wild card team. I know they didn't win the division, but they are a very good team. I mean, I talked about it when I picked them. Even they lost Wander Franco, and they haven't lost a step. They have incredible players, great talent, and I just think they're one of those teams. They're a more experienced team. And the AL has a ton of new teams. The Orioles haven't been into the playoffs in like a while. I think, a very long time. The Rangers haven't been since 2016. The Astros, of course, have been, but they're not the same Astros as they were in the years when they've been a dynasty. And they don't have trash cans to bang on anymore, which that's a big issue. We all know that the Astros are not as good when their team can't tell when a curveball's coming. So I just think that this is going to be a really interesting World Series matchup. I do have the Dodgers winning in 6 because I just think when it comes down to it, the Dodgers are just a team that can pull out ugly wins and can win, big World Series games under the lights. So I think that they will pull it out in 6. But, this is a series that could go either way, and I'm very excited if this is a World Series that I get to watch in 2023.
Yeah, the last time they played, it was in Texas. It was really weird. I think it was like 10% capacity. It was just a really weird scenario, and it wasn't a lot of energy to build off on. So
Exactly.
Definitely would be excited to see these two teams play this year. So for me, personally, out of the AL, I'm gonna have to pick the Baltimore Orioles. When I see them, I think of the Phillies from last year. I think of the Nationals who won the World Series in 2019. I see a young team with not a lot of experience that can get really hot and surge their way. They can beat all the big teams that they need to. They can beat the Astros. They can beat all the big teams that they need to do to make it to the World Series. Now, on the other side, the Atlanta Braves, back to what you said, they are fantastic. 1 through 9. Everyone is fantastic. Everyone can hit home runs. Everyone can do exactly what they need to do. Their defense is fantastic. Their pitching's great. The only issue might be the bullpen. But if they're doing what they're currently doing, they don't need a bullpen when they're winning games by like 8-1. So with that being said, I have to pick the Braves. I think it's going to be in 6. I think if it did go to 7, the Orioles might take it because the Braves would be very relaxed. But I really think the Braves just finish it in 6 in Truist Park. It's an amazing environment.
Absolutely.
It is. But the thing with, I just want to point out one thing. The Orioles, yes, teams like that are young, have this fire under their bellies come September and October. And the Orioles did have that in September. But I just think with the Orioles, and the reason I didn't pick them, because they were the second team I was going to pick, is the fact that the thing with young teams is they somehow meet a team that they just can't get over. They play a team, which I think is the Tampa Bay Rays for the Orioles, that just, for some reason, has their number. It happened to teams last year. I think a great example is the Seattle Mariners, who were red hot against the Blue Jays and won 2 games in a row in Toronto. And then face the Astros, and the rest is history. Yordan Alvarez is very, very good.
Hey, you're completely right. I mean, picking these things is very hard. So, honestly, it can go either way. Both of those teams are fantastic.
Predictions for a reason.
Yeah. So that's it for the MLB postseason and wildcard preview. For Jeremy Rose and Owen Cameros, I'm Matt Becker, and you are watching Penn State Sports Night.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and follow our socials down below.
And as always, we are
Penn State Sports Night.